With just 80 more days before the June 24 general and presidential elections, President Dr. Julius Maada Bio is quick off the mark, calling on local media at his annual presidential media cocktail held in Country Lodge in Freetown to give him another chance to finish the job he started in 2018 when elected into office. He was noted to have said, "Stay with me, stay the course, and let us finish this journey together." He outlined parts of his achievement during that August gathering. The press secretary, Office of the President, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, in an interview at the Wilberforce hockey pitch, where His Excellency collected his VR card, summarized the 5 year governance of President Bio as pretty much remarkable and noted some challenges, especially in the area of economy, for which he says that is key in the second inning of President Julius Maada Bio. I have the opportunity to have as my guest in the studio the Press Secretary, Office of the President, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi. Great to have you in the studio, sir.
Thanks for having me, Abdul, and good morning, viewers, wherever you are, whether you're going to work, whether you're at home, good morning. And it's always a pleasure to have a conversation on what we've done for the past 5 years.
Will you still be able to summarize the achievement of His Excellency as pretty much remarkable?
But of course, we took up country where in 2018, 2017, the then APC government had declared austerity. I mean, across the world, many countries, whether in Greece, in Italy, in Spain, wherever they have declared austerity at any point in time, has been because of economic mismanagement. We also took a country where we had huge state liabilities, we had the inflation rate with double digits, So it was a huge responsibility we had to take on. The economy was almost a life support machine. 5 years on, we've made sure that we've increased school enrollment for pupils from 1.9 million pupils to 3.1 million pupils now. We've increased access to electricity from 16%, now we are about 32%. We've also made sure that we increase access to water as well. For instance, in rural areas, we've increased by 6%, in urban areas, we've increased by 20%. We've also made sure that for the very first time in this country, the budget allocation for education is 22%, which is remarkable. We've also made sure that we've made a lot of progressive legislation. So, for instance, the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act. For the very first time, we are going to have 30% of women representation in governance and across many, many sectors. We've also made sure for the very first time mining communities benefit from natural resources. So, for instance, the CDA, which used to be 0.001%, now is 1%. And very recently, we went to Mabroka, where Leone company, they obviously give that to the community. It's about 2 billion. I mean, these are things that are happening for the very first time. We've made sure that across the board, whether it's on energy, whether it's on education, whether it's women's empowerment, whether it's youth and creating jobs for young people as well. We've done that. For instance, we had a program where we established in 190 chiefdoms across the country, youth in farming, where about 10,000 young people were engaged in youth in farming, youth in fisheries, which benefited about 1,400 young people as well in fisheries along the coastal districts. Of course, we've made sure that we're able to do things which are remarkable on the global stage. You have the president who, for the very first time in our history, chairs the CITEN and also is chair of API. He does not only have that by chance, but because his colleagues have seen that over this period of time, he has been able to make sure that he has been a role model in terms of good governance. Able to make sure that he has been the chief advocate for the reform of Union Security Council. So these are things that are remarkable. The UN Secretary General is hosting a global summit on education. He looked at all the heads of state. He only chose one head of state to co-chair global education at UN level. So these are remarkable things that we've done, which I believe will give people the hope and the confidence that indeed we are on a trajectory. We are making a progress. We're on a path. And that path is a path that the job is not completed. There are challenges. The economy, challenges which I think people care about, people are concerned about. But the question is, what is the government doing to make sure we address those challenges, which I think probably will come back to that. So in a nutshell, this election is about choice. A choice between a president who took a country from austerity under the APC to now a country which is progressing, on economic reforms, on the global stage, on education, on healthcare, on many things. On healthcare, for instance, for the very first time, we've increased the number of health facilities across this country. For the first time, we've also made sure that maternal mortality is 38% on the decrease, which means that the WHO rep went to the president last week and he said, Mr. President, for the very first time in your country, you've reduced the number of most deaths on maternal mortality by 60%, which is remarkable in Africa, which means that our maternal mortality rates for now has been decreased from 717 per 100,000 life births to 443, which means that across sub-Saharan Africa, whether in Guinea, in Liberia, in Nigeria, and in Kenya, our rate of maternal mortality rate is lower than in those countries. Infant mortality as well. We've also mentioned that we've increased by 34, and the average in West Africa is 54. So, which basically tells you that we are on a path, we are on progress, and that decision that we have to make is to ensure that do we maintain the progress we are making, or do we go back to austerity, or do we go back to an alternative where there is no focus, there is no leadership? And I believe Syrians are very smart, they can make the right decision.
I have with me as my guest in the studio the Press Secretary, Office of the President, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, who is here to outline key achievements and the 5 year of governance of His Excellency President Dr. Julius Maada Bio. Once more, you most welcome to the program. Stay with me, stay the course, and let us finish the journey together. His Excellency President Dr. Julius Maada Bio said after outlining what he referred to as his government's success stories at the 4th annual media cocktail hosted at the Country Lodge Hotel in Freetown. Let me go over to my studio technicians to just give us a recollection of what prevailed then.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Thank you very much. I want to get to the place now. The Honorable Vice President, Madam First Lady, Chief Minister, Honorable Minister of Information and Communication, the Chairman, Independent Media Commission, the President of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, the Fourth Estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Editor Lelia, the bossman in London. Today I will start with a very short story about 3 men. One was an editor, photographer Lelia. Yes, the other one being photographer. And the other one being reporter, journalist. These 3 were covering a convention actually in Miami. And in Miami they have a very beautiful beach. They decided to go up and down the beach while the convention was going on. Halfway up the beach, they stumbled into a magician. And this magician said to them, normally, when I see people, I let them fulfill 3 of their wishes. But since you are 3, I will only fulfill 1 wish for each and every one of you. And the photographer Mago. He said, I will be the first. I would like to spend the rest of my life the wish when the photographer will get. You say you want to spend the rest of your life in a very beautiful, huge house, and you don't forget any money problem. Then the magician granted him his wish and sent him off to the Caribbean in a beautiful mansion with everything. He didn't even have to worry about anything anymore. Then came the journalist, the reporter. Then the magician asked him, "What do you want?" As a wish. Then he said he wants to live in a yacht, cruising the Mediterranean for the rest of his life and with no worries about money. The magician granted him his wish and sent him off to the Mediterranean. And of course, the last person who came was the editor. And the magician asked him, "What do you want?" I am tempted to do the same thing. In fact, in April this year, for the first time, for any city president, I visited radio and TV stations where I subjected myself to media scrutiny on my 3 years achievement and other governance issues. From SLBC TV with Salma Taba, Radio Democracy with Madam Asma James and my best friend Mabel Kaba, AYV with Antonia Howard, Star TV with my friend Abdurrahman Kamara, to Justice FM with Kelvin Lamin Lamdo. We gave life to the meaning of Section 11 of the Constitution that provides for the obligation of the mass media to highlight the accountability of government to the people. I was confronted with many important questions on corruption, violence, challenges of education, yet there was also my friend on Radio Democracy, Good Morning Salon program, who asked me, "Waiting, are you current relationship with your predecessor, the former president?" He said, "For what time?" I said, "Waiting, are you relationship with your former boyfriend?" Suddenly, that became the highlight. Just in case you have also forgotten, in April, I became the very first sitting president to participate in the presidential town hall organized by Syria Eye magazine. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's just a snippet of his engagement with media practitioners and journalists at the presidential annual cocktail at Country Lodge. First off, let's begin to look at where he reiterated, in this case His Excellency reiterated a point that he subjected himself to transparency and accountability by visiting so many radio and television stations. Otherwise, one could say that's a very difficult undertaking. You subject yourself to outline what constitutes most of the key benchmarks. What does that mean?
Well, it simply means that president is servants of the people. I mean, every time you get to elections, you give your manifesto to the public, to the people, and then the people, on the basis of on the basis of the manifesto, they look at your policies, they look at what your promises are, look at your pledges are, and then they entrust their confidence, hopes, and aspirations in your leadership. And for us, for the very first time, like you said, this is the only president during his time who has left the office and is gone to radio stations, television stations, to explain to people what he's done. The reason is very simple, that his type of leadership is a leadership of accountability. When for the fact that he has stayed that long, people will need to know what you've done, Your Excellency, even though sometimes they are very obvious that you've done. So, for instance, the airports that you've done, these are purposeful infrastructure. It's very obvious, you can see it. But regardless of all of that, he believes that we need the engagement to subject himself to the media scrutiny, which I think is very unique as well to his leadership, and that is part of what he has done over the period of time. But specifically for the media, you also remember for 55 years we had the Seditious Criminal Libel Law, which has been in our books as well, and he has been the only president who has got the courage and strength to say, indeed, this is a nation where we must embrace press freedom. This is a nation where people must have the right, must have the opportunity to express themselves constructively. And we believe that what we've done for the media alone, in terms of the subventions to SLAG that we always do to make sure we give them more capacity, I think these are the remarkable things that we've done. We've not done that just to make sure that we want people for us to have votes from SLAG. No, because we believe that, like Section 11 says in the Constitution, that the media plays a very critical role in terms of strengthening our democracy, in terms of making sure that you give voices to people, but also holding government to account. And that is what the president has done for the past 5 years.
Let's look at the flagship program of His Excellency the President, where he tailored his message, his campaign message in education, that if a nation is going to survive, if a nation is going to develop, education should be key by way of transformative growth trajectory. Let's begin to look at what in 5 years has been a remarkable achievement in the area of education, of healthcare, the fight against corruption, and of course what you mentioned briefly, gender and women's empowerment, and of course we shall come to the economy and energy.
Alright, well, thanks for the opportunity. Now, we have to look education at a vehicle for sustainable development. Remember, by the time we came to office in 2018, standards in education had been dropped drastically, and the president anchored his New Direction Manifesto on human capital development, which is free quality education, because he believes he has a story. And this is a story of someone who was in the village, who used to go to school on bare feet. He lost his father at the age of 4. His mother was not educated. But then because of education moved him from the village to becoming head of state twice. It's a unique opportunity. And he believes that that opportunity he has to education should be accorded to every child in this country. So what have we done? So when we came in, we ensured that was the budgetary allocation to education was a bit paltry. So we increased that by 22% budgetary allocation. And it is so unique because that is one of the highest in Africa and the continent. But we have not only stopped that. We made sure that you cannot just have increased budgetary allocation, but you also need to make sure that people have the tools. So we provide textbooks, teacher learning materials. So 12,000 schools across this country. We did not stop that. We also made sure that teachers are very critical in terms of our learning process. So over the period of time, we've increased salaries for teachers 3 times. The first time we did was about 10% for junior workers transport allowance. In 2020, we also increased by 30%. And very recently, last year, we agreed to increase 45% of teacher salaries, which we've already started in April 2023. Now, what are the dividends have we shown? We've shown that school enrollment alone, when we came in by 2018, it was about 1.9 million kids which had access to education. Now, we have about 3.1 million pupils who now have access to education. What have we also done? We've also made sure that because there are remote areas where children go to school, they don't have access to food, and because of that, the retention rate is very low. So we also established and implemented the school feeding program. So as I speak to you now, more than 600,000 pupils across the country benefit from the school feeding program. And because now we've included parts of the Western area, we're going to increase that to 800,000. We've not only stopped that, we've built more schools. So we've increased the number of schools that we've built over this period of time, remarkably as well. So when we came in, we met about 10,700 schools. Now we have about 12,100 schools across the country, which I think is remarkable.
but also we've shown that in the quality of the educational system. So we've got increased passes in educational system. So for instance, last year, 2022, we made sure that we have about 81% passes in NPSC, 87% passes in 2020 in Becker. We've also made sure that for the very first time, we have about 106,000 candidates, pupils who sat to us, who passed for the university, and that's remarkable. And even the retention rate in schools has increased drastically. So now, as I speak to you, by 2021, we had about 129% retention rate, people staying in school. So these are all remarkable things that we've done. And we've complemented them with, for instance, the school buses that we've done as well for the schools, which I think help a lot of parents in terms of giving discounts for transportation for kids to go to school. And these are things which are remarkable. So for educational sector, what we've done is to make sure that we met an educational system where standards were low, morale of teachers very low. We've increased that, we've improved that. So we've increased the enrollment, we've made sure that the capacity of teachers, we've increased them. We've recruited about more than 12,000 teachers across this country. When we came, there are many teachers who never had PIN code. We're not going to give all the teachers PIN code because government do not have the budgetary resources to do all of that. But what we've done, we've taken substantial efforts to make sure that those who have teaching and in schools, we'll make sure that we'll be recruiting about 12,000 teachers. So that's what we've done on education, which I think is very important. But we've not stopped that. We've gone to health. Health has been very critical because when you look at the human capital development, it has three components: education, healthcare, and agriculture. So what have we done in healthcare? When we came in, we made the budget on health alone about 6%, which showed that the past government, health was not a priority. We've increased that by 98%. So as I speak to you now, by 2021, the budget allocation for healthcare alone is about 11.6%, which is remarkable. But we've not stopped that. We also believe that you cannot only have the health infrastructure, you need to have nurses, doctors, or health workers who should work there as well. So we've recruited about 5,000 health workers over this period of time. And I speak to you now currently, we are recruiting about 1,500 health workers to complement what we're doing in the health sector. But we've not stopped that. We've also made sure that we have increased our spending on health, and by doing that, we now have more health facilities. So as a government, across the board, on the 16 government hospitals now, we're not paying to rehabilitate them. We've also made sure that even on the health facilities, what we did was in 2019, we had about 1,300. As I speak to you now, we had about 1,500 health facilities across the country. And the infant and maternal mortality I spoke about earlier is very important because these are also things that which we care about, because we believe that you have to make sure that kids who are born into this country, their chances of living and livelihood becomes higher. So what have we done? We've also made sure that infant mortality alone has been very, very on the decrease. So for instance, we have about 34 of the 1,000 per birth, live births, and the average for West Africa alone is 54%. We've not only stopped there. Maternal mortality rate, we've reduced that by 38%, which I think is very, very important. And like I made mention to you, for the very first time, we decreased the number of most deaths in maternal mortality by 60%, which I think is very important. But we've not only stopped that, we've also made sure that the health facilities across this country, for instance, in Bo, in Kenema, in Makeni, we gave them oxygen generating plants as well, which I think is important. National ambulance service, which we introduced. What has it done? We've made sure that across the country, we've almost saved the lives of about 40,000 people just by the national ambulance service that we introduced. The health on wheels. They go to districts, go to communities to provide health services. They now provide health services. Mobile clinics. Now, the statistics that we have, they've given access to healthcare for people across the country, about 21,000 people, which tells you that indeed this is the government which cares about people. We're making sure that people have access to all of these things, not just because we believe that these are all things we can do for politics, no, because essentially these are things which are integral to many of the things we're doing.
Press Secretary, what prompted your post making comparison with Kenya, where they acknowledge the challenges the Kenyan government is going through by way of not helping themselves to pay their workers. And you made a comparison after if Kenya really want to have a case study, let them come over to Sierra Leone to see how you guys got it right.
Well, the point I was making was about the economy. So, like I said to you, we're a very truthful government. We believe the economy has been a challenge. It has been a challenge because of principally two reasons. The first reason has been because what we inherited in 2018 was an economy that was almost a life support machine. Like I said to you, you state
Are we still looking at the past?
No, but for you to move forward or for you to have a proper comparison of where we are and the progress we've made, you have to look back.
But it's 5 years past now.
Yes, but 5 years is not enough. If you took over a house from somebody,
but you
what's the
campaign
result?
on a platform of change.
Yes, and we are changing things. That's why I've given you analysis on education.
So why
Okay,
constant referencing in the past?
Because the economy was in a very bad shape, which we took, and therefore the progress we've made is to be seen in the context of what we inherited and what the progress we've made. Because by 2018, despite the economy which was in a very bad shape that we took, we started making progress. So for instance, on domestic revenue mobilization alone, we increased it by 2% of our GDP from what we inherited. The public expenditure management, we also decreased our public expenditure by 2% from what we inherited. But what happened? By 2019-2020, COVID set in. And when COVID set in, it affected economies across the world. The managing director of IMF said to you, the cost of COVID alone on the global economy is about 10 trillion US dollars. It means something, which tells you that whatever we are going through we're not unique to Sierra Leone. COVID caused about inflation in the US, 40% high. In the UK, 40% high. In Canada, 40% high. So which basically tells you that it is not a matter of the economy or the hardship. It's about what did we do as a government to make sure that we react and address those things. And I think that's very important. So the comparison I was making is that Sierra Leone is not unique in terms of what we're doing. But we are faring on better because there are other countries across the world. So I made mention about Kenya, where the deputy president was saying on live TV that the government is broke and they cannot pay their salaries to civil servants or give money to counties. So it tells you that in Sierra Leone, for the past 5 years, we've paid salaries, we meeting our obligations, our debt obligations, so we were making progress. But we've not only stopped that in Liberia. There was a point in time last year when they had a rice shortage in Liberia. They had to come to Sierra Leone to get rice to go to Liberia. So during this crisis, what we've done is to make sure that on the essential commodities, we establish facilities where the private sector, people in the businesses, they were able to get finances from the Bank of Sierra Leone. So which there was a special facility we created about $100 million, which we had for the people who used to import rice, import commodities, and many things. So what did we also do? We made sure that rice is a staple food. We made sure that we had 0% on our import duty and the GST, and which meant that government has lost about more than 1 trillion just on that 0% that we've done on rice. Now, if those tax waivers or the tax decrease or the way you may call it would not have been in place, it would have been that rice alone in Sierra Leone would be more expensive. Right. And I'll give you another one.
Yeah, before you give me another one, Secretary, how will you summarize the saying of His Excellency the President when he said that I will look deep into agriculture into my second inning? Is that an acknowledgement of failure in the agricultural sector?
Not really.
It is not.
No, because what
does that relative mean?
Okay. So this is a president who believes in food security. They will tell you that he's a master farmer because he believes he's passionate about agriculture. Now, for far too long, we have arable land, we have lots of the components, the baseline, for us to do big things in agriculture. So what president has been saying is that if we focus on agriculture, about diversifying our economy, because for far too long we depended on the mining sector. So, for instance, earlier when I spoke to you about the mining communities now benefit more from the mining sector, from the CDA, from 0.001%, I spoke about Leone Rock, which gave 20 billion to the community which with their mining. Now, President is saying we cannot just rely on the mining sector. Let's also look at other sectors, and agriculture is one of those sectors. So, what have we also done in agriculture? Now, we cannot continue on the subsistence farming of agriculture. So, we've mechanized. So, for instance, government on its own, we provided over 400 tractors and power tillers across this country. Then they established 15 machine rings across the country. And we make sure that we provided seed and fertilizers to about 12,000 farmers across this country. Now, many people may think that, okay, what have we got to show for it? So, for instance, on our rice self-sufficiency performance alone, by 2019, we're about 45%. We've increased that to 2020 by 57%. So, which basically means that we've grown more rice since we took office. But people will ask the question, but why is that we are still importing more rice? And the answer to that is that, one, it has to do with our preference. So, essentially, people more prefer imported rice to our local domestic rice. So even though we are producing more rice, but it basically means that rice is going through cross-border trade. So most of the rice that we produce, for instance, up country, they go to Guinea and Liberia because, for instance, in Guinea, they prefer our rice more than we do in our country. But then we can also do more in terms of polishing. Because most of the rice which are coming imported in this country, they are very polished rice. So for us to make sure that average Chinese people, so for instance, how much time do you have to eat our local rice? You probably prefer imported rice. So we have to do first change of habit in terms of what we eat our basic rice. But we have not only stopped that. We also have to make sure that there are 3 components that we have to deal with. So for instance, on the polishing of the rice.
Yes, I have a bundle of bamboo.
Which is good. Yes, which is good. So if all of us Salinans begin to make a concrete decision and say, every week we eat this quantum of our local rice that police, for instance, up in the provinces, people don't have problem with rice. Because every time we move across the country, we go to chiefdoms, people give president sacks of rice, which basically tells you in the provinces, people grow what they eat or eat what they grow. So it is not a problem up in the provinces.
But Secretary, one of yours yesterday acknowledged the fact that in as much as the economy is it's a poorly performing economy. In one of the radio stations, Alhaji Saidu, he said it can give 4 out of 10%, and that the economy is not doing extremely well. That's a frank acknowledgement of what prevails.
Well, obviously, I've not listened to that.
I've listened to it.
But I mean, like I said, nobody will rate this country 4 out of 10.
But he's with it.
That's what I'm saying.
He's an in-group member.
That's what I'm saying. I have not listened to that.
I have.
And probably if he had said that, that's probably was a slip of tongue. But I can.
So that's not the reality.
That's not the reality. Because I've spent almost probably half an hour giving you statistics, giving you practical things, giving you achievement that we've made on across the sectors. And our rates are country that we've scored almost 90%. 90%. That's what we've scored. And that is a grade that can give you first class. At any rate, if you are at university, you score 90%, you will have first class. So it basically means there are challenges. Of course, there are challenges. Challenges in the economy. That's what I explained to you earlier on. But these challenges are not unique to us. So, despite even Kenya, Zambia, and Ghana, just last year, they sought bailouts from the IMF because their economies were not doing good. 5 years, we've paid salaries, we're making progress, we are addressing the challenges that brought upon us by the global twin global issues, but then we have not resorted to go to IMF for bailout. What have we done? We've made sure that we've restored financial institutions' confidence in our government. So all the international financial institutions, we've restored their confidence. So IMF, the World Bank, African Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, they are now giving us more money to our development project. Even that we are going towards elections, they still give us more money to support our budget, to support our programs that we're doing. By 2017, these institutions, They abandoned our country because they lost confidence in the leadership of the then APC government. So that's something special we've done. But we've not only stopped that, we've also made sure that we were carrying government at the height of the crisis. What did we do? We made sure that we gave cash transfers to vulnerable people. We established the Munafa Fund. Thousands of people have benefited from the Munafa Fund. We also made that at the height of the COVID. We gave cash transfers to people in the hospitality sector. These are practical things that we've done to give people the...
So where is the chorus of displeasure actually coming when people are thinking of a poorly performing economy?
Well, there are two things. Firstly, there are some people who do it out of politics. They see the facts. They see that Sierra Leone is not unique in whatever we're doing. There are many other countries across the world, like I said to you, like Kenya, like Ghana, like Zambia, many other countries who are going through the same thing. But because of politics...
Well, for those who consider having a political lens, they will tell you the entire issues are pretty much evidence of the fact that the agricultural sector is not doing well, the economy is not doing well. You will imagine what is the exchange rate now for $100. In the previous administration, it was left like something like 600, 5 to 600. And as I speak now, it's 2 million and above. What is happening? How could that be mitigated to actually have a drawdown in all of these?
Like I said, there are many things responsible for all of that. We're not an exporting nation, so which basically means that the amount of forex that we receive has always been very low. Okay, so that's why the president is saying we have to make sure that we invest in our industrial sector, because the more you export out, the more forex you have in return. But this, like I said, these are things that are not unique to us. That's why I gave you the issue about rice. The rice, 50 kg bag of rice is only equivalent to the same cost as in Liberia. But in all other West African countries, rice is more expensive in those countries than here. Flour is more expensive in Ghana, in Benin, in Nigeria than in Sierra Leone. These are things which we are saying that yes, there are challenges, but Sierra Leone is faring on better. But even amidst all those challenges, there are things that we've done substantially across the board. Like for instance, in the mining sector, we've got more mining companies coming here, creating more jobs for our people, and making sure that people for the very first time they are benefiting from the mining sector and in those communities. But we've not only stopped there, at the international stage as well. The president has been doing extremely well. Remember, people used to see Sierra Leone as a country where it was the most corrupt country in the world. When you come to Sierra Leone, it's about Ebola, about lots of negative things. But now when you talk about Sierra Leone, you talk about human capital development, talk about education, talk about women's rights, you talk about press freedom. These are all things which are obviously very tangible that you can see and you can feel. And these are things, for instance, which on the MCC alone, now as I speak to you, we qualified with developing the MCC compact.
Before we come to the MCC, I'm pretty much aware that I'm looking at President B on a global stage. Sierra Leone will be presenting its candidature for seats in the non-category of the United Nations for 2024-2025. And Sierra Leone candidature has secured endorsement from ECOWAS and the African Union, and is not competing with any other African country, thanks to the stewardship of no less a person, His Excellency first, afterwards the Foreign Affairs Minister, Professor Francis.
Well, that also tells you about how far we've moved. So from a country where we had lots of stigmas about our international reputation, to a country where now we can be proud that Sierra Leone's candidature is being supported and endorsed by the African Union, it's been endorsed and supported by the ECOWAS, endorsed and supported by many multilateral institutions, by big world powers. They're supporting us. They're supporting us just not because they like Sierra Leone, but because they have seen a president who is honest, accountable, transparent, and a president who is very progressive. And they believe if Sierra Leone gets to the UN Security Council, we can be a very, very vibrant and loud voice for international peace, for global solidarity. We can be a voice for women's rights. A couple of years ago, we went to UN Security Council. We passed a resolution to give justice to victims of sexual violence across the world for the very first time. That was our resolution. So these are things which are not happening by chance. They are happening because of sheer commitment and determination of one person, President Bill, a very progressive leader, a leader who believes that if Sierra Leone is on that stage, our voice is not only loud, but our voice is meaningful and impactful. We've been chairing the C10, which we inherited from the former president, and now we've given more prominence to the C10. You hear every time we go to the UN Security Council, he stands on that podium. When he speaks for Africa. So all of this put together, they tell you that what we've done for the past 5 years is to make sure that we've rebranded our country, we've given our country more responsibility among international institutions and among community of nations. And these are signs of things people will continue to witness and enjoy, and make sure that you have a leader and a president who is not only respected at home but also abroad. I made mention to you about the APIM. He is the only president in Africa,
African peer review mechanism.
exactly, who is chairing 2 assembly committees. And for the very first time, it has not happened by chance. It has happened because his colleagues look at him. They saw that he is somebody who is sincere, somebody who at home is practicing good governance, the rule of law, and somebody who can export that to many other African countries. So they can almost use a peer review mechanism that is heading to see how other countries can make sure that there is good governance and there is rule of law.
Basically, let me put this question to you. With all that you've highlighted as what constitutes the success of this political administration, this is where you bank your optimism that the June 24 general and presidential election is a walkover for this?
Well, I cannot be that arrogant. All I will say to you is that we are confident in what we've done. We're confident in our achievements. We're confident in the intelligence of Sierra Leoneans. That at the end of the day, Sierra Leoneans will sit, assess our government on the achievements we've made, on the progress we've made, and also on the vision of the president for the next 5 years. And they will put that against an opposition which is directionless. There is no leadership, there is no policy alternative, there is nothing to show.
And many will say you are the author of the very destruction of the opposition.
Well, there is no way we can be author.
I'm not saying this. I'm only reiterating their opinion that you author their destruction because you fail to give them an equal playing level field.
But what is equal playing level field? 1 year in advance before the elections, we announce the dates for the elections.
Public opinion will say you micromanage all of those government institutions, the PPRC, all of this.
But that is not true. When the APC had their problems and then they went to conventions, it was the same PPRC who came back and then they endorsed their convention. So which tells you that government institutions are working independently and impartially. But obviously, when you're in opposition, because you always think that even when you want to breathe oxygen, if you don't breathe at one point in time, the government is responsible. So you put all your failures, you put all your lack of leadership, you put all your problems on the government, on the party in power.
So you did that while you were in opposition?
No, we never did that. What we did when we were in opposition was that we pointed out to tangible things. So for instance, when we were in opposition, when the APC, for instance, they went and attacked our party office, women were raped, it was vandalized. Those were tangible things we had to point to. Because we believe that as an opposition, you have to be responsible enough. Even when the APC had been given an only opportunity for inclusion in their party, not even government, because obviously they don't have, they are bereft of policies, bereft of programs. There is nothing. So governors, they are clueless. When they have the only opportunity, they went to market, the only opportunity they have, reform your party. Make sure
somebody will say you have the liberty to say all of this thing because Senior Timis is not here, Abubakar Darami is not seated by your side, Menkairu Kuroma is not seated by your side. I will not take breath for any of them.
But I wish they were here. Because we believe that politics and this election is about ideas. This election is about alternative policies. This election is about a debate. Because at the end of it, let me tell you, the next 5 years will be very integral and instrumental. And therefore, we need Sierra Leoneans to make informed choice. It is not just because I love President Bio because he's a handsome man. Yes, he's a handsome man. But we believe there is more towards being handsome because he believes he has policies, programs, and plans for this country. We do not only believe because you vote for President Bio because he is more dynamic, he is a younger man as compared to Samura Kamara. No. We want people to judge us on our achievements, on our programs, on what we've done, and also about the inspiration for the next 5 years. That's what we want people to judge us on. So, but like I said to you, when they had the only opportunity in Makeni to reform their party, to make a party of inclusion, what did they do? They went to Kamakwe Road. And everybody in the executive, except for few, came from the same place. You cannot, in this modern century, you cannot ask the people to repose their confidence in you when you are monolithic, you are short-sighted. When everything you look at is from the point of view from the north or from Kamakwe. That is not how you run a country or a government. Because if that is a test they have to pass on how they make sure that our country is more inclusive, they fail that test.
So what's the current makeup of your administration?
There are many people. I'll give you a few instances. Alpha Khan. We are appointed Alpha Khan. This has been a former minister of the APC government.
They will tell you Vandimomo.
Government.
They will tell you previously Vandimomo.
Yes, but there are a few of them that they can point to. And I can give another instance. Zainab Abangura, who was a former minister in the APC government. An opportunity came in the UN security, an opportunity came at the UN United Nations, and she wanted a job. And then the UN Secretary General of no mean feat called the President Bio, and said, okay, we have a candidate. Because most times when you have these jobs, they have to call up to your own country for them to endorse and approve you. The US Secretary General called President Bio and said, we have a candidate from your country, and we want this candidate your approval. President Bio had a choice. Because, for instance, Madam Zainab Abagura has been a former minister in the APC. He's not from the north, he's not from the southeast. He's a northerner. He had a choice to say, okay, no, let me look for somebody who's equally competent and recommend. He said, no. He said, our Zainab Abagura is a Sierra Leonean. She's competent enough. Give her the job. She will make Sierra Leone proud. And today, she's performing extremely well in Nairobi. She's making us proud. Peter Payoku Conte. These are people from the north that we have in our government. So what I'm saying to you is this, that we have a government that we've run for the past 5 years, which believes in competence and people with integrity, regardless of your tribe. So for instance, I'll give you another one, even MCC. In the Kuruma when we came, she has been governing and leading that program for a while. So what happened? Despite we met her in office, we saw in her that she's competent. She has the integrity. And because of her effort, because of her leadership, we've now developed a compact. So what we are saying in essence is that you have a president who look at people, not from where they come from, not from where they're born from the tribe, but from what they can deliver to Sierra Leone. And that's how we're moving our country forward.
Okay. He's a press secretary, Office of the President, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi. The time in the studio is 9:51. I will give an opportunity to summarize on President Bio's achievements, but advisedly, we'll start with another important aspect that deals with national cohesion. This is something that has caused much more tribal and ethnic polarization, and for which many people believe that it should have been the top-notch priority of His Excellency the President, trying to mend fences between tribes. Some of us don't know what tribes, like tribe is development. But from a generic point of view, it's becoming pretty much challenging. How much have we been able to achieve in the area of building a nation state through cohesion?
So when I speak about the achievements of President Bio, on many of these things, I think about practical things. So even on peace consolidation, when we came, what happened? we realized, yes, we had good scores in terms of our peace index and everything, but we have to go more, we have to do more than that. We have to have infrastructure for peace consolidation. So the Bintumani conference, we organized it. Across this country, we called stakeholders, they were invited. Many people went to Bintumani to see how, firstly, we can be able to make sure that we talk about many of the things which are challenges to our peace consolidation. And above that, to make sure that we establish the structure. Again, the All People's Congress, they boycotted that conference. But we thought peace consolidation is more than just the APC. It's for our country. So we've established the Peace Commission. And now the Peace Commission is functioning and doing extremely well. So make sure that we look at all the triggers of violence, to make sure that wherever we are concerned, wherever there are concerns, wherever there are issues, there are problems, they can always step in. So that is something very tangible that we've done. But again, we've also made sure that even on the governance space, we've opened it up. We have made sure that we appointed more people in governance who are also from the north, or who are not people who are related to our tribes. Because at the end of the day, I said to you this, Abdul, earlier, that for President's Bill, we only have one Sierra Leone. Whether you are Timni, you are Limba, whichever tribe you belong to, if you have the competence and the skills to move this country forward, you are part of his government. You can be part of his government. And we believe it is something that we are going to move on with for the next 5 years. So which basically means that even in the next 5 years, as we shift from education to agriculture, because the president believes that food security is something integral for our future. Many countries are Vietnam. We had similar stories with Vietnam. They had war, they had problems, but Vietnam today is one of the exporters of rice to the world. So which tells you that with determination, with a commitment from a president who believes in food security, even before we've been re-elected, we've started the work on agriculture. So last year we went to Senegal on food security, program organized by the African Development Bank, where we put together our package on agriculture and food security, which we're now looking for funders to fund. So it tells you we are not just sitting and just moving and waiting for elections. No. We've already started to do the work for the next 5 years on agriculture. And that is the credibility you have in this president. That the head of the African Development Bank can pick his phone and call him and say, Mr. President, we believe in your vision in agriculture. We will support you. It's a credibility you cannot buy. You can only get that because they believe and they see in you that you're not only genuine and care about your people, but you're also very progressive leader. And we believe if once we have our next 5 years, this country, in terms of food security, will lay the building blocks for food security. Because across what we've done for the past 5 years, on education, on healthcare, in the mining sector, on Women's Empowerment Act, on the judiciary, on many things we've done, we've almost set our country on a trajectory that is irreversible. So the vehicle has already left the point of austerity. We're moving, and we're moving on progress, on the pathway. We're moving towards prosperity. It's not going to stop, it's not going to change. We're not changing the driver. Because with the passengers, we're confident that he knows where he's taking us. He's taking us to the direction where we believe we can be proud that Saturday, once again, on education, on healthcare, on everything, we're only going to move forward and higher.
Is a summary of a campaign message? Is it a summary of a campaign message?
Not really. If you give me an opportunity, I'll give a summary very clearly.
You have the opportunity.
So, to the people of this country, I thank every Sierra Leonean who has supported our government for the past 5 years. Whether you voted for President Biya in 2018 or not. But these past 5 years, you must have seen what he has done on gender empowerment. And you said, yes, this is good for our country. You must have seen, if you did not vote for him in 2018, you must have seen what he has done on education. And you said, yes, it's good for our country. You must have seen what he has done on progressive legislations. You must have seen what he has done on many areas, and he said, yes, this is somebody that we can trust in. 5 years on, we took a country where it was austerity, double-digit inflation. The economy was collapsed. We started the journey. COVID came in. The war in Ukraine also started, affected us. But we did not stop there. Now, as I speak to you, we have more pupils enrolled in schools, about 3.1 million people. We have more health facilities. We have more access to electricity. We have more access to water. There are many achievements we've made. Mining communities now benefit more than ever before. On the global stage, the president can sit with the Secretary General. He can chair 2 committees of the African Union for the very first time. These are things that we can point to and the progress we've made. There are challenges. I know you care about the cost of living. I know you care about inflation. But we've also made sure that on tax waivers, on tax increase, on zero tax on rice, on most of the things, on cash transfers for vulnerable people, cash transfers on people with hospitality industry, we've made sure that we've given subsidies for fuel. Because if we're not done for fuel, for instance, the price for fuel would have gone up. If we have not done subsidies on EDSA, for instance, the lights now you pay would have gone up. We've done all of those things. We believe if you give us another chance, another 5 years, which we're confident that because we believe in the intelligence to give that to us, Sierra Leone will progress and move forward the next 5 years on food security because we have to feed ourselves. Thank you for the opportunity again for President Bio to serve.
On this note, I want to thank you so very much for honoring this invitation, being part of this program today. We're looking forward to having you in subsequent edition of the program. We know the moments are coming when we shall be having similar discussion of such nature here. Thank you so very much, Press Secretary Yusuf Keketoma. Have a very wonderful day.